I told you about how that stove was getting very hot in the house. On 100-degree days, you really don't want to be in the kitchen, and neither did Mom. So they had another building called the summer kitchen. And this building is where they could do a lot of the other hot jobs. Maybe they needed to iron. So they would start a little fire in the stove. They would put the irons on the stove. The irons would heat up because there's a heavy on the bottom here. They would iron their clothes. When that iron got cold, then they would take and they would switch the iron out to another one. And the iron you see on the stove there now, that's called a ruffle iron. And if you had a fancy dress, that may have been how you put ruffles in your dress. Back in the back there, we have some butter churns. We can make our own butter. And so that was always good to have a cow. Now, they didn't need to buy soap at the store because they could make their own. What they used was water, grease, lye, and ammonia. They'd cook it up in this pot outside the building, and when it got to bubbling, then it was probably done. So what they did is they poured it into this box, and they ended up cutting into bars of soap. And that's what you use to wash your face, your hair, your clothes, your hands, your body, whatever needed to be washed. Not a lot of pretty soap going on there. Okay, let's go over here. This room here, we raise sheep. We can make something out of the wool, or we could actually sell it in town too to make some money. In this window here, we talked earlier about that flour sack dress that Mom was going to make for you. She either had to sew it by hand or she used what's called a treadle machine. And so what she would do is she would sit down in the machine, she'd put her feet on that little round square down there, and she'd push with the top and down with the bottom. So it would go back and forth and back and forth. The machine on the needle on the machine would go up and down, and then that would be a way to sew your clothes. Over here we have some fancier clothes. These might have been used by the people that lived in town. If they wanted to have hoop skirts, they would put these orange hoops over their head, tie the smallest one at the waist, the hoops would come down, and they could put their dress over the top of that. And then they would have a nice outfit. Now usually what would happen, the women on the farm didn't have those nice clothes because they were working all the time. They usually wore just a plain house dress. Usually didn't have very many clothes. You had the outfit that was on your back, you had one in your closet for tomorrow, and you may have had a nice dress. Now all these were handed down. So they didn't need a lot of clothes at that time, unlike the closets and the clothes that we have today. Over here we have lots of kind of washing machines. Again, they are all hand cranked. Again, they have no electricity, and everybody had a better idea, but the same idea was still hand operated. Here's some toys that the kids might have played with. Again, noticing the little girl's ironing. She's washing. They had dolls for taking care of the children when they got older. Over here we have some blocks. Maybe the boys ended up building something, but it was a lot like what you were going to be doing when you got older. If you had a doll, you usually only played with a doll on Sunday, if you were even lucky to have one, because that was probably the only day you didn't have chores to do. This window here, we have an old-fashioned wedding dress. Notice the pointy shoes, which we have today.